So you think you might have spotted a UFO. And you extraterrestrial flabbergasting alien. What? No? Oh right. Sorry, I got that wrong. It's unidentified flying object. But when most of us hear UFO, we mean suspected alien spacecraft. However, did you know UFO sightings actually encompass any unexplained aerial phenomena? UFO sightings have been reported throughout recorded history and in various parts of the world, raising questions about life on other planets and whether extraterrestrials have visited Earth. As we know, it's a major subject of interest. So, what is the real deal when it comes to UFOs? Let's take a look. But before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe. Flying saucers. The first well-known UFO sighting occurred in 1947 near Mount Rainier in Washington, when businessman Kenneth Arnold claimed to see a group of 9 high-speed objects while flying his small plane. Arnold estimated the speed of the crescent-shaped objects as several thousand miles per hour and said they moved like saucers skipping on water. When this came on the news, however, thanks to the reporter who wrote up the article, it was mistakenly stated that the objects were saucer-shaped, and thus the saucer-shaped alien spacecraft has forever been embedded into our minds. But taking things seriously, Mr. Kenneth Arnold might have had some sort of connection to these mysterious UFOs, because the same year Arnold saw the flying objects, rancher Mac Brazel came across a mysterious 200-yard-long wreckage near an Army airfield in Roswell, New Mexico. This became known as the Roswell UFO sighting. Local papers reported it was the remains of a flying saucer. Possibly the remains after Jonathan and Martha Kent picked up baby Superman. Just kidding. The US military issued a statement saying that it was just a weather balloon, though the newspaper photograph suggested otherwise. And of course, this began the wildfire of conspiracy theories, as if they didn't exist already and weren't absurd enough. These conspiracy theories were further fanned in the 1950s, when dummies with latex skin and aluminum bones that looked eerily alien-like fell from the sky across New Mexico and were hurriedly picked up by military vehicles. While this might be convincing to many, one big question does raise here. Why should we assume aliens to look like this, and not something normal, perhaps of similar human appearance, or maybe larger or smaller, or maybe even invisible? Why this troll-like being? Anyways, to those who believed in the earlier Roswell sightings, this seemed like a government cover-up. For the Air Force, these dummy drops were a way to test new ways for pilots to survive falls. 50 years later, the military issued a subsequent statement admitting that the Roswell wreckage was part of Project Muggle, a top-secret atomic espionage project. As we know how the human mind works, people see things, hallucinate things, believe things they want to believe. Sometimes it's derived from fear or other emotions like so. It's amazing how the mind can convince people of things that might not even be real. And at the same time, the opposite also happens. And sightings of unidentified aerial phenomena increased. And in 1948, the US Air Force began an investigation of these reports called Project Sign. Cold War tension was mounting, and the initial opinion of those involved with the project was that the UFOs were most likely sophisticated Soviet aircraft, though some researchers suggested they might be spacecraft from another world, the so-called extraterrestrial hypothesis, ETH. Within a year, Project Sign was succeeded by Project Grudge, which in 1952 was itself replaced by the longest-lived of the official inquiries into UFOs, Project Blue Book, headquartered at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. From 1952 to 1969, Project Blue Book compiled reports of more than 12,000 sightings or events, each of which was ultimately classified as 1. Identified with a known astronomical, atmospheric, or artificial human-caused phenomenon, or 2. Unidentified. The latter category, approximately 6% of the total, included cases for which there was insufficient information to make an identification with a known phenomenon. So we see how Americans slowly and steadily became obsessed with the UFO phenomenon. And in the hot summer of 1952, a provocative series of radar and visual sightings occurred near National Airport in Washington, D.C. Although these events were attributed to temperature inversions in the air over the city, not everyone was convinced. Of course, it had to be the attack of the aliens. And sure enough, the number of UFO reports had climbed to a record high. This led to the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, to prompt the US government to establish an expert panel of scientists to investigate the phenomenon. Seriously? Like, seriously? Sometimes, the amount of money invested into alien research makes me wonder, is this all to keep the American mind occupied while something darker may be hidden under the surface? Anyways, the panel was headed by H.B. Robertson, a physicist at the California Institute of Technology in Pasadena, California, and included other physicists, astronomers, and a rocket engineer. The Robertson panel met for 3 days in 1953 and interviewed military officers and the head of Project Blue Book. They also reviewed films and photographs of UFOs. And then they reached the conclusion that 1. 90% of the sightings could be easily attributed to astronomical and 1,000 phenomena, that is, bright planets and stars, meteors, auroras, ion clouds, or to such earthly objects as aircraft, balloons, birds, and searchlights. 2. There was obviously no security threat. 3. There was no evidence to support the ETH. Parts of the panel's reports were kept classified until 1979, and this long period of secrecy helped fuel suspicion of a government cover-up. But apparently, H.P. Robertson and his team's research was still not convincing enough. And a second committee was set up in 1966 at the request of the Air Force to review the most interesting material gathered by Project Blue Book.
2 years later.
2 years later, this committee, which made a detailed study of 59 UFO sightings, released its results as Scientific Study of Unidentified Flying Objects, the Condon Report, named for Edward U. Condon, the physicist who headed the investigation. The Condon Report was reviewed by a special committee of the National Academy of Sciences. A total of 37 scientists wrote chapters which covered investigations of the 59 UFO sightings in detail. Like the Robertson panel, the committee concluded that there was no evidence of anything other than commonplace phenomena in the reports, and that UFOs did not warrant further investigation. Goodness gracious, who could have thought all that research and all that money spent would end up useless? And so, with a decline in all the hype, came a decline in sighting activity as well, and eventually led to the dismantling of Project Blue Book in 1969. And now for the moment you all have been waiting for. What about Area 51? Because Area 51 is hella creepy. In the 1950s and 60s, multiple UFO sightings were reported around Area 51 in Nevada, a site used variously by the CIA, US Air Force, and Lockheed Martin to test flights of experimental aircraft or black aircraft. Declassified documents show Area 51 was home to a Cold War program called Oxcart, dedicated to creating a spy plane that would be undetectable in the air and could be used to gather information behind the Iron Curtain. The resulting SR-71 Blackbird, F-117 Nighthawk, and Archangel 12 traveled at speeds upwards of 2,000 miles an hour. And you can see how these mysterious planes could help fuel rumors that Area 51 was used to conduct experiments on extraterrestrial life and their spacecrafts. Rumors. Rumors alert, everyone! Rumors! Other investigations of UFOs. Despite the failure of the ETH to make headway with the expert committees, a few scientists and engineers, most notably J. Allen Hynek, an astronomer at the Northwestern University in Evanston, believed a small fraction of the most reliable UFO reports gave definite indications for the presence of extraterrestrial visitors. Hynek founded the Center for the UFO Studies, CUFOs, which continue to investigate the phenomenon. Aside from Project Blue Book, the only other official and fairly completed records of UFO sightings were kept in Canada, where they were transferred in 1968 from the Canadian Department of National Defence to the Canadian National Research Council. The Canadian records comprised about 750 sightings. Less complete records have been maintained in the United Kingdom, Sweden, Denmark, Australia, and Greece. In the United States, CUFOs and Mutual UFO Network in Bellevue, Colorado, continue to log sightings reported by the public. In the Soviet Union, sightings of UFOs were often portrayed by tests of secret military rockets. In order to obscure the true nature of the tests, the government sometimes encouraged the public's beliefs that these rockets might be extraterrestrial craft, but eventually decided that the description themselves might give away too much information. UFO sightings in China have been similarly provoked by military activity that is unknown to the public. Alright. If all these UFO sightings are provoked by military activity, and perhaps some kid flying his kite out in the blue spotted by a farmer who couldn't think of any other explanation, then how do you explain UFO sightings and alien abductions? What about the helpless woman who was impregnated after she encountered a UFO? Well, that's a story for another day. But for now, UFO reports have varied widely in reliability, as judged by the number of witnesses. Whether the witnesses were independent of each other, the observing conditions, for example, fog, haze, type of illumination, and the direction of sighting. Typically, witnesses who take the trouble to report a sighting consider the object to be of extraterrestrial origin, or possibly a military craft, but certainly under intelligent control. This inference is usually based on what is perceived as formation flying by sets of objects' unnatural, often sudden, motions. The lack of sound, changes in brightness or color, and strange shapes. That the unaided eye plays tricks is well known. A bright light, such as the planet Venus, often appears to move. Reflections from windows and eyeglasses produce superimposed views, and complex optical systems, such as camera lenses, can turn point sources of light into apparently saucer-shaped phenomena. Such optical illusions and the psychological desire to interpret images are known to account for many visual UFO reports, and at least some sightings are known to be hoaxes. Radar sightings, while in certain respects are more reliable, fail to discriminate between artificial objects and meteor trails, ionized gas, rain, or thermal discontinuities in the atmosphere. And as for full-on abductions, come on. Stop making excuses for the criminals who might actually be out there, keeping people hostage. It wasn't the aliens. If you liked our video, don't forget to subscribe and follow our channel for more videos like this one.